Today I'm going to tell you the story of Oklahoma's linebacking core and why Kenneth Murray Jr. is in the midst of an All-American season. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today I'm going to tell you the story of the OU linebacking core as I see it and why Kenneth Murray Jr. is having an All-American season. But first, I got these t-shirts. They're seriously about to go out of stock because I'm not just going to make any more of them. If you have ordered them already, chances are yours is in the mail. They say, I'm just here for Baker, Cleveland. For folks that don't really want to wear that orange, but also want to support Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, there's a link in the description and in the comments below to where you can purchase them. And again, while you're at it, I got this book coming out. It's called Let It Bang. It's about my odyssey into guns and what I found there. It is not sports related. There's a story about race, culture, politics, all the other buzzwords that we don't really talk about on this channel. All right, so for starters, think about where Oklahoma was last year, myself included. I made videos criticizing Mike Stoops and the depth at linebacker because heading into an Iowa State game in October a year ago, it seemed Mike Stoops was hell-bent on running a scheme that he did not have the talent to support. He had a true freshman at middle linebacker. He had a senior at will linebacker. Caleb Kelly was the kind of guy he could take off the field, and he was asking so much of Obo Oronquo that it didn't seem like he was going to be able to hold up for the entirety of the season. Stack on top of this, losing a guy like Ricky DeBerry, who despite all things was a 5-star linebacker and a big get for Oklahoma when Jerry Montgomery was the defensive line coach. And even before that, when Mike Stoops got back here, it seemed like he forgot about the linebackers because he was getting torched so much with these Big 12 schemes. Getting guys like Corey Nelson involved was a big deal. It was one of those things that everybody looked around and said, this is one of our best athletes on the defense. Why isn't he much more of a focal point than he is? And over the last 7 years, it seems that Mike has made a concerted effort to get his linebackers more involved in his scheme and recruit to the kind of scheme that he wants to play. I still don't know that it's all the way there, but you can see this year with this group of linebackers, we're starting to see something special at Oklahoma on the defensive side of the ball at a traditionally stocked position for Oklahoma. Now Mike Stoops is running a 4-2-5-3-4 hybrid, and there is depth all over the linebacking core. But in the spring, didn't really know what we were going to have. You knew that Kenneth Murray Jr. was going to come back and reprise his role as the middle linebacker because he was even arguably the best linebacker, and we thought that Caleb Kelly was going to be his running mate at the will. But then when the preseason came around, you started to hear rumors and whispers about how Buzzy Bolton, Curtis Bolton, was making the leap. A guy that a lot of folks had written off and didn't think was ready to play the position at this level, and a guy who quite literally can play every position in Mike Stoops' linebacking scheme, had finally blossomed and come of age, and he won the job outright next to Kenneth Murray Jr. And immediately, those two guys put to bed any worries about the linebacking core. And through the first 5 games of the season, Curtis Bolton and Kenneth Murray Jr. have been Oklahoma's best defenders. Now throw into there the emergence of Mark Jackson at the jack linebacker. And Mark Jackson winning that job from Addison Gumbs was not what many people expected, myself included. We all thought that Addison Gumbs was going to be the guy. But apparently the coaches are keeping their words to the kids to say, if you outwork someone, if you win the job, we will not stop you from taking it. And you're also seeing the emergence of a guy like Ryan Jones. And we all know how much I like Ryan Jones. And I'm excited to see him in the Sam linebacker position because it's much more of a safety linebacker hybrid, which is one of the reasons I think Caleb Kelly was playing it last year, is because as a space linebacker who can be dependent on to cover from time to time, but also can blow up plays in the backfield and has the speed and the size to get everywhere, it's nice to have Ryan Jones as your 4th linebacker on the field. And for the first time in a very long time, I can say that the weaknesses on the defense are not at any of the linebacking positions. Not at Jack, not at Mike, not at Will, not at Sam. And that has to be a testament to Tim Kish and what Mike Stoops have done in the raising of the kids, because that has been a real criticism of Tim Kish and Mike Stoops, that they would recruit these kids and not necessarily develop them into the kind of players that we thought they should be. Can't say that in 2018. Case in point is Kenneth Murray Jr. and Curtis Bolton. Now this is where it gets interesting, and the reason I believe that both Kenneth Murray Jr. and Curtis Bolton are about to be national names if they aren't already, is the leader in tackles this season is Britton Barr at Massachusetts. He has 76. Number 3 on that list is Kenneth Murray Jr., who has 64. This is a guy who had 78 tackles all of last season as a starter at middle linebacker. Kenneth Murray Jr. understands the scheme, he understands where he's supposed to be, and he is everywhere. Notably, just behind him at 63 tackles this season is Kansas linebacker Joe Dineen. So 2 of the top 4 linebackers across the country play in the Big 12, a conference that is much maligned for its defense. And with the emergence of Baker Mayfield and Pat Mahomes in the NFL, folks in college football and in the NFL are starting to take notice of what you can do in this conference from an offensive standpoint, but also with guys like Kenneth Murray Jr. and Joe Dineen popping up, we're starting to get this reputation for putting out at least linebackers, if not defenses. And when you go just outside the top 10 in tackles this season, you get to number 11, which is Curtis Bolton. Curtis Bolton has 56 tackles this season. Now, I can hear the argument that their tackles are inflated because they played Army in the flex bone, but hey man, if you're not in there, you can't make tackles, and they're in there all the time. And you have no control over what the scheme is of the team that you play. You can only go out there and do your job. And one of the things that I love about Kenneth Murray Jr. is there's been a lot of talk about him having 45 tackles over the last 2 games. And he said, y'all talking about the 45 I got, I can't stop thinking about the 5 that I missed. And that's the kind of thinking that you want from your middle linebacker, from the guy who is essentially the captain of the defense. And Kenneth Murray Jr.'s numbers are so good through 5 games that it's becoming hard to see him not be an All-American by the end of the season. To wit, the 2 first-team All-Americans on defense in 2017 were UGA linebacker Roquan Smith and Iowa linebacker Josey Jewell. Jewell finished the season with 132 total tackles, including 13.5 for a loss. Roquan Smith finished the season with 137 tackles and 14 tackles for loss. Now think about Kenneth Murray Jr., who had 8 tackles through 5 games and 6 tackles for loss. And Kenneth Murray Jr. has at least 7 more games to play. And if he stays healthy, he's on pace to have 150 tackles and about 14 tackles for loss. Curtis Bolton is also not far off there. He could finish with around 120 to 130 tackles for the season. So the evolution of the linebacking core at Oklahoma and getting it back to what we have come accustomed to in the early 2000s and in the 80s, when you could talk about guys like Brian Bosworth and even as recently as Rufus Alexander, Curtis Lofton, and others I'm sure folks are going to tell me about in the comments below. I think it's important to note that Kenneth Murray Jr. has made the leap, that Curtis Bolton has made the leap. And for the folks who believe that Caleb Kelly should start against Texas and further down the road, think about perhaps last year he would have had he been this good. But the level of linebacker play across the board has gotten so much better that it's become really hard to get some of these guys on the field. Guys like Deshaun White, who is an Army All-American. Guys like Levi Draper, who I would love to see play some football. Guys like Nick Benito, Brian Asamoah. We could go on, and I'm sure that we will in the comments below. But bear in mind the ridiculous season that Oklahoma's Mike and Will linebacker are having every time you mention Kyler Murray. Because for me, it's a much bigger deal that you're getting this kind of play out of your 4 linebackers than it is that Kyler Murray is having the kind of historic season, because the offense at Oklahoma has been good since Lincoln Riley arrived. The defense has been middling to average, and this year, perhaps some things are coming together. I'm not convinced that they are, but the linebacking core is. All right, that's it for me. Deuce.